talking about cross-platform application development and specifically how Marmalade can help you to do it fast, efficiently. So I'm going to kick off with basically what is Marmalade. So actually, before I start, how many people here are actually application developers or developed an app at all? No? Brilliant. In which case, hopefully this will encourage you, or if you're a platform vendor or so on, then maybe think about why you want to use this. So, what is Marmalade? Marmalade is essentially a cross-platform abstraction layer. What it lets you do is build a single native binary and deploy that to one of multiple platforms. You don't recompile, you don't have to write in different languages. It's the same application basically running on these different devices. So what platforms do we support? We support BlackBerry, Playbook, BlackBerry 10, iPhone, iPad, Android, Barda, LG TV, and more, which I'll talk about later. We're not a VM or abstraction layer. What Marmalade does is basically lets you run whatever you want, whatever C, C++ applications, just straight on these platforms. So to give you a bit of an idea of what we do, these are some of the publishers we work with, people like Activision, Capcom, Konami, Square Enix. They've all got teams working on games on our platform. And the sort of games and apps we do, you can see there's really nice kind of simple 2D casual games, but also things like interactive children's books and really high-end 3D stuff like Call of Duty, Backbreaker, Lara Croft, Metal Gear Solid, and that sort of thing. So apart from just kind of showing off here, the point of this slide is to sort of show you that we're not sort of developing a specific kind of application. This is basically build what you want and run it at full native speed on whatever device you want. So, to go back to cross-platform development for a little bit, say you want to develop for BlackBerry and Android and iPhone, what you have to do is download 3 SDKs, you'd have to build 3 different projects basically, one for each of those platforms. You'd have to do a bit of Objective-C, a bit of Java, a bit of C++. You probably have to do some of your work on a Mac if you want to do iPhone development. So what Marmalade does is lets you do all of that with a single SDK. You don't need to install any other tools to basically build your application. You can work on a Mac, you can use Visual Studio to code, on a PC, and it's all C++. And because it's C++, you've got access to thousands of libraries that already exist. You are using standards, you're not using some kind of black box technology, you're not locked into someone else's proprietary platform. If you really wanted to move off Marmalade on something else, you could, but I think you'll find that our platform is so stable that you wouldn't really want to. And once you've built your application, you get this thing, one-click deploy. So this is kind of our little magic bullet solution, if you will. Basically, you get a little menu, you can pick iPhone, Android, BlackBerry, LG TV, whatever you want. You press the button and you get a binary you can put straight on the phone. So an IPA for iPhone or a bar file for Playbook. So all sounds a little bit kind of wonderful. How does it really work? That's my next slide. Basically what we do is we take advantage of one single thing that all of these different platforms and devices have in common, and that's that they all run on some kind of ARM CPU. So if this is your device, you've basically got a device running an ARM CPU with some kind of graphics processor. If we compile your app to ARM bytecode, it'll just run. The problem is, this guy here is going to get in the way. So you're going to have to cope with an OS's specific events. You're going to have to call through to a specific API for that platform. What we do is we provide Marmalade systems. So this is the abstraction layer. It gives you a single API for all the different platforms. So you can do location access, accelerometer access, contacts, file access, memory management with one API, and it's just going to work on all the platforms. We also take care of things like memory management, file management. We make sure that the stack is exactly the same. We make sure that when you access a file, it doesn't matter if it's hidden in some kind of odd sort of subsystem on one device and not on another, it'll just appear exactly the same to you. We also fix a whole heap of graphics issues and bugs from device to device. And then on top of that, we have some C and C++ standard library wrappers. So what this means is you can use things like malloc, file open, and sort of generic cross-platform APIs. And that means that basically any piece of C and C++ code will just work on top of Marmalade. So, for example, how about some physics libraries? Yep, those will work. How about some scripting languages? Want to write your game completely in Python and Lua? Yep, those will just work. We've got a few other things like Scaleful for doing Flash and GitHub, which I'll come on to a little bit later. And then at a slightly higher level, things like a fully featured game engine. So Cocos 2D is for writing 2D applications and games. Shiva is a kind of Unity-style full 3D game toolkit. If you build your application in those, you can just deploy straight to Marmalade on BlackBerry, iPhone, Android, etc., etc. There's also, I won't go into much detail on this, Marmalade Studio, which is our own kind of middleware layer. This does things like animation, rendering, and model import. The important thing is that it's just one of many, many options. These are just libraries that you compile into your game. We're not saying you've got to use these to build your application. Your application just sits on top of whatever you want. So as well as being like a sort of abstraction layer, it's also a development kit. So here you can see Visual Studio running. It's got some debugging going, you can step through code. It's got a visual simulator. So what this does is it lets you basically set up the simulator to simulate any kind of app you want. So you can set the screen resolution, you can set input events, you can pause, suspend resumes, you can have like fake phone calls and that sort of thing. And on the right, this little kind of tool here is basically where you pick the platform. Like, I'd like to deploy to Varda, you can set things like packaging options, icons, signing. For example, for iPhone or PC, this is where we do all of the signing you normally do on a Mac. A little bit more of kind of some of the things you saw earlier with the modules you can use. These are all official Marmalade partners, so some companies partner with us to make sure that their software works with Marmalade out of the box. We've got things like full 3D animation engine in Morphine. We've got Score Loop, which is like our official sort of social networking high score gamer API. OpenFake, which is kind of similar. Photon, which is a real-time 3D games engine. Real-time networking engine even, and things like Haze App, Flurry, and Interactive for advertising and analytics. And then also GitHub. So GitHub is basically our public repository where our developers make new modules and share them. We have quite a big active developer community and we nurture them through our website. So there's a set of forums. People like me who work on the SDK will go on there, talk to these guys, encourage them to build new things and to port things to run on Marmalade. So that was a little bit whirlwind run through the entire of Marmalade. Just to give you a little idea of what we're doing at the moment, our version 6 SDK is coming out in a couple of months' time. This is going to have two big things. One is rich native UI support. So this is basically if you wanted to write a UI that will run across all the different platforms. Sorry, keep it dry up here. And use all of the native UI. So for example on iPhone you'd get the blue buttons, you'd get the kind of bouncing scroll bars, you'd get the back button at the top. On Android you'd get tabs at the bottom, built-in hardware back key, that sort of thing. Web Marmalade is a little bit more interesting. This is basically, you can already do web apps on Marmalade by using built-in web view. You can write HTML5 and JavaScript. This is going to allow you to call between the web part of your code and the native part of your code. So for example, you could take an existing web app, in 5 minutes you could put it into a Marmalade app, and then you could call through to native things like location, accelerometer, take photos using the platform's built-in photo camera functionality, push them straight into a web app. And the final things are basically more platforms. We're going to do Windows and Mac desktop deployments, more smart TV platforms, probably at least one set-top box by the end of the year, and Chrome native client. So native client is basically take your C++ application and run it in a browser. So for example, you could be playing a game on your playbook, get home, switch to your PC, fire up the browser, carry on playing the same game right in the browser, exactly the same piece of code running. And then Windows Phone 8, which will be on the way later this year. So, before I take any questions, I thought I'd give you a little bit of a demo of some of our stuff.